All right. What's up, nerds? It's Taylor. It's Wednesday, November 23rd, the day before Gobble Gobble Turkey, creepy, weird in-law day. Uh, let's do this. Yeah, Cranky Comic Book Review Show. Worst to best. Thin pickings today, because, I don't know, I didn't feel like buying a lot of shit. And the LCS didn't carry at least one book I was really looking forward to. That book was Dark Spaces Wildfire. They ordered it, but it's going to be a few weeks. I'll review it when I get it. It is what it is. And yeah, so let's just dive on into this shit. Because you're either not going to watch this because it's Thanksgiving weekend, or you're just going to skim through it to see the books you care about. I don't blame you. I did the same damn thing when I watch other people's reviews. It's the nature of things. And so worst to best, we're going to dive on in. And the worst book this week, and it wasn't even close, was this steaming pile of shit. Star Wars Revelations #1, written by Mark Guggenheim, who's written a bunch of TV stuff, like Arrowverse-y kind of crap. And I don't know. This book was barely a story. It's got repetition throughout it, but it doesn't really, I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to use these words and repeat them and create a rhythm. And also trying to have a rhythm by repeating story elements. But if you're going to do that, the story elements have to evolve at least a little bit, or has to be a point of view that's a shift. You can't just repeat things. I literally thought the last couple pages of the book were a fuck-up, because it seemed like he was just retelling the shit that happened in the beginning. There's nothing new to be learned in there. And in the interim, in the middle pages, not much either. Also, I don't know, I'm guessing it's the writer's fault, but there's a bunch of different artists working on this, and it's kind of a steaming hot mess in that regards too. In some ways, you get traditional panels and decent stuff, and some of it, right? So that's fine. And then, the majority of the book is this. Just a jumble, 2-page spread, kind of broken up. And there's not enough visual cues on most of these pages, or lettering cues, or guidance as far as direction as to how to read it. And so you're just kind of at a loss. I mean, that one's not bad. There's only 10 words, 10 pan, whatever. Some of them are better than others as far as that goes, but there's just some. It's just a goddamn disaster of a book. I really want to like Star Wars books. I like the Star Wars universe. I think Andor is one of the best TV series of this year. I think it's great. But the comics are mostly shit, and this is also mostly shit. And it's a book that doesn't need to exist. There's a first appearance in here of a robot, I guess, android, whatever the hell. But it's done really boringly and poorly. And then there's also, what else is here? It's Akira and that other nonsense. It's not an interesting story arc, and it's not an interesting story, and they're trying to shoehorn this shit in the middle of stuff that's already happened, which again can be done well. See the TV series Andor. But it's most of the time it's kind of a hot lump of mess. And the art is very uneven. Some of the artists are better than others. One of the artists that I'm not going to keep reopening this shit because I don't care that much. But one of them that try to capture Luke's lightness is just god awful. Honestly, just bad. And I don't know, this whole book just kind of pissed me off, and I really didn't want to finish it. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I won't even review it. Maybe I'll just put it on a stack, pretend I didn't get it, pretend I didn't waste my money. Well, no, I'm going to let you guys know. This is a $6 waste. If you give a shit about a very interesting robot, according to the previews or whatever, solicits. Honestly. And there's sirens going off in the background, and my head hurts, and I don't want to be doing this review, honestly, today. It's just one of those days. I've had them before. We've all had them. You get these going waves with your love of comics or your hatred of comics and all that, right? It just right now seems like most comics are mediocre. And so it's hard to keep up this enthusiasm and energy from week to week when a lot of the product is just kind of you shrug and you're like, all right, I guess that was a fucking book. Like this. I wanted to like this one too. Fear of a Red Planet. Written by Mark Sable, art by Andrea Olimpiari. It's a political book about colonization of Mars and the colonists kind of wanting to rise up. Interesting enough idea. Kind of been tackled before, the TV series The Expanse. I'm not going to keep, or the book series The Expanse, or whatever. I'm not going to keep comparing comics to other media. They're different, and I understand that. But there's elements of storytelling that are universal and that work. And this one's trying to get you to have empathy for these colonists who are being poorly treated by the corporation and are forced to mine for stuff. But you don't learn anything about the characters until the end pages when there's a letter kind of explaining some of the shit. And then you also like get kind of thrust right into like weird action, but it's not very exciting. It's not very honestly well drawn. Like the Olympieri's art's okay, but it's not gonna like wow you. And there are panels where you're like kind of confused, and the characters are not very distinctly drawn either. So there's kind of times where you're like, I don't know what the hell character that is. Like you're just kind of reading it, and you're like, is that this person? Is that this person? And then yeah, there's like it's a setup issue, all of it, but it's just not an interesting setup. Like the premise itself is an interesting premise, but just the execution of it is so piss poor that like I really don't want to keep reading this. Like I just kind of like it's the part where I'm like, shrug. All right, next we have a better one. We're getting better, and this one I like, but I think this is the last issue for me. It's written by H.S. This talk with art by Isabella Mazzanti. It's Hitomi #2. I like the first issue. I like the first issue and the second issue probably equally, which is to say, fine. I like the art. It's got a sketchy kind of loose, flowy style. Not quite Peach Momoko, but not crazily far off. It doesn't feel like, the influences in the art style don't feel especially Western, if that makes sense. And then the story, a girl wants revenge for her family and tries to hook up with a Ronin to train her. The story itself is not breaking a whole lot of new grounds. There are some fun details in here and some fun dialogue bits that make it kind of better and elevated above like just that kind of traditional kind of tripiness that I told you about. But triteness. Tripe is what, intestines? No, triteness. Words are hard. So there are like a few little fun bits and some small moments that really do help to elevate this book. And I think when it's collected, it does have the potential to be at least a fun read. And there are bits in here that made it kind of enjoyable to get through. It was just not striking me well enough to keep going with it. But like I said, the artwork I do think is a strong point. It does have this kind of nice flowy, fluid inkiness to it, with an interesting color palette and just a few, choices and stuff that make it feel different than your normal comic book, your normal Western style comic book. It's just not grabbing me quite enough, is where it is. It's not awful by any means. Your enjoyment may vary on it. I do actually like the cover. I kind of like, and I'm liking the sort of brush strokey style of it all, but not quite enough. So maybe I'll read it collected. But it's kind of a maybe at this point. It's kind of like I don't know. We'll see. You might, I might thumb through the last issue at the LCS and see if it's worth getting. All right, and then we have Swear Devil. No, we have Daredevil #5. This is Chip Zdarsky. It says Marco Cicchetto on the cover, but it's not Cicchetto's art on the interior. It's Sabatini. No, it's Shadow Light, whoever it is. Who is it? Thumbin'. I should probably learn this shit ahead of time. Rafael De La Torre. And so, like, I don't know why because Cicchetto designed it in the variant cover. I don't know. It's wrongly labeled. And this is like the next we're in the kind of the middle of the next big story arc from Chip Zdarsky. It is entertaining enough. Like, Daredevil's head of the hand now with Elektra, and that's about as spoilery as I'm going to get. And then they do things to piss off the world. So it's fun. It's not. I don't think it's the best Daredevil that Zdarsky's ever written. I think but it's like if you like his run on this, you're probably going to like this issue. I do think the art suffers a little bit from not being Cicchetto, but like Cicchetto's either slow or kind of weeding his way off the book or whatever. So there's been fill-in artists more often than not lately. It's solid. It's like not awful. It's not a fantastic issue of Daredevil by any means. But it's good. It's you're in the middle of the story, so this is one where it's hard to really kind of like break down and review because you don't have start points and end points. And I feel kind of like, why am I talking about this? I'm like, oh yeah, I do this shit every week, so that's why. I don't know. Why do you keep tuning in, dummies? So I don't know. I don't have anything profound to say about this one. I really wish I did, but I also wonder how many sort of prison sequency covers have we seen lately, and it just seems like I don't know, like billions, and this is weird. Is Elektra riding Daredevil's back? I don't know. Not my favorite cover, but next, whatever. All right, next we have what is essentially a blacklight poster as a 22-page comic, and I like this one, But I also like I'm probably going to wait for the collection because I don't have any idea what the hell happened in this book. Um, and even upon re-going through it, I don't think you're really going to get a great idea. It's just a weird, trippy, surreal, dreamlike book, and that's Doctor Strange. Just what's it? Doctor Strange, Fall Sunrise. Ooh, get it? It's a D because it's a fall sunrise and fall and rise by Tradmore and Heather Moore. And this book is just bizarre. And Tradmore, I think, did what Silver Surfer Black. I've not read that. I've heard good things, but I've just not gotten to it. And it's like it's a gorgeous book. I mean, it's very stylistic. It might be lower on the list if I really sat and reread it and try to break it down. But what I'm liking is it's like, how the fuck did this get published by Marvel? And like it's one of those where like you're like, I'm not saying Marvel never takes chances, but it sort of seems like it. And this is definitely a chance. I've got to feel like it's going to probably commercially crash and burn for them or not do very well numbers wise, because it just doesn't seem like it has like anything a traditional Marvel fan would like about it. And the story itself, while there is at least the semblance of a plot and a plot thread, it's not very coherent and it's not very even profound in any kind of way that's going to be like a light view. But it's a visual feast. It's like a blacklight. You know, if you ever want to get high as balls and read this book or drop some acid or some shrooms or whatever those kids do nowadays. By kids, I mean the 7-year-old hippies that are buying comics. Yeah, you're probably having a real good time. It's a fun one. It's $5. I say, honestly, unless you're really into Tradmore stuff, and I've not really researched what they've also done other than this on their mainstream stuff, either skip it or look through it and see if you can stomach it or if this cover has any appeal to you. Like, I love it. Like, I love the art style, but it's definitely not going to be for everybody. And story-wise, this is almost going to be for nobody, kind of. So, I don't know. I like it, but it's just not much of a Doctor Strangey. I mean, it does have some Doctor Strange elements in that it's just like feels weirdly Ditko-ish and like strange and kind of nuts. But it's just not much other than that. So take it for what it's worth. Probably trade weight it or, yeah, at least flip through it. All right, next. We have another one. This is Jason Aaron and Alexandre Tefengi and Lee Lowridge with Nick Dragotta and Rico Renzi. I'm not going to break down who does what. I'm pretty sure Nick Dragotta is doing most of the art, I think, or he's doing the end pages. I can't remember. But anyways, Once Upon a Time at the End of the World by Jason Aaron. This reminds me of, I can't remember the goddamn name of the book, so this is going to make me sound like an idiot. The one that all these kids are left alone on the planet. There's no adults. Not that one. The other one. The one that sounds like that. What's the other one? Doesn't matter. Postal-apocalyptic tale. There's one hardened like adventurer woman trudging through like life on her own and comes across this other person, and that's the beginning of this adventure. And that's the spoilers I'm going to get on this one. It's fun. It's bizarre. It's not like your normal Jason Aaron. And by that I mean it's not his Marvel work, which I'm glad about. Like, I think his adventure stuff is okay, but I think he's at his best when he has his own universe to play in, and I think this is a fun setup. Art-wise, I can't think of who it reminds me of, but it's also a kind of sketchy, maybe Phil Hester. It's got this like sort of chunky sketchiness to it, and the color palette's a little dark in places. I mean, again, it is post-apocalyptic. There's panels that are a little bit confusing and hard to follow, and there's some character work that's not amazingly fantastic. But in a week of like mediocre stuff, it's at least a fun adventure story. I liked it. I'm going to keep up with this one. This is like my cutoff threshold for the week of like book I will pick up the next one of, because it's just bizarre enough and just fun enough that I'm in. And maybe not in forever, but I'm in for one more. And my LCS always wonders, well, not always. This new LCS I've been going to since I moved to Madison. It's like, why don't you subscribe? I'm like, well, because you just punish people for subscribing. Like, they don't give any discounts. They don't give any benefits. But they do kind of make you buy the book, even if you're not interested in it if you miss final cutoff. And that's the only LCS I've ever been like that. That everyone else will either get a discount if you order a certain number, or they're a little more forgiving, and like, oh, you know what, this book was shit, I forgot to take it off the list. And I'm like, oh, no problem, we'll put it on the shelf. This one's not that. This one's like, nope, you got to buy it. And so he asked me today, like, why aren't you subscribing to these? I'm like, because why would I? Like, I'll take my chances. If I miss out on it, you can always reorder it, and then I know I want it, and I'll have to wait a few weeks, which is Dark Spaces Wildfire would happen with that one. But I don't want to like keep committing. I'm a commitment phobe, and like in case you couldn't tell, I don't always finish miniseries, and I don't always finish series because if they're garbage, I'm not going to keep reading it. Thankfully, that was a tangent, but thankfully this one's not garbage. I like it. And I like it well enough to keep going. So it's a post-apocalyptic love story. Is the maybe love story? It's not love at first glance, at least on the part of all the characters involved. So it's fun. It's Boom Studios. It's Jason Aaron. I'd say pick this one up if you are into that kind of thing. But your mileage and all this shit might vary. All right, next. We have Charles Soule and Ryan Brown. 8 Billion Genies, number 6. This is 6 of 8. This one's wrapping up, and every issue of this has been like a leap forward in time by multiples of 8. I think it was like 8 minutes, 8 hours, 8 days. Not multiples. Like not if you multiple. No, multiples are the wrong word, but factors, jumps. 8. This is 8. I don't know. 8 billion genies. 8 minutes. 8 seconds later. 8 minutes later. 8 weeks later. 8 months later. 8 years later. And this is 8 years later. It's issue number 6. So the world has been infected or blessed or what have you by 8 billion genies. Every person gets one genie and one wish. And this is 8 years after that has first started. It's a significant time jump from the last one, which I think was 8 months later. 8 months after the genies appeared. And the genies are these weird little blue things. I don't know. Interesting character design. Ryan Brown's art is like cartoony and odd and kind of fits the story. It's a story that's strange. It feels still more like a thought experiment than a cohesive tale from like start to finish. There are characters in here, and maybe it's just been long enough from the last issue, and maybe it's the time jump. I'm like, what are they talking about? This character was a thing and really wanted to do all this? And so, like, thankfully, this issue mostly focuses on one group of characters. The other previous ones have jumped around a lot more, and there's a little bit in that in this, but like the main plot of this one does follow these 3 people, and that helps this issue. It's probably my favorite issue of the bunch thus far because like it does have like a character arc and a bit of a story, which like people have been praising this book up and down. It's fine, and I get it. It's just not been much of a tale. It's been an idea. It's been 5 issues of an idea, and this is starting to like still have an idea. But like it's not like your traditional story where there's like one character or like one group of characters you're following from start to finish. It's not even like I'm not going to compare it to a TV show, so never you mind. I was going to compare it to Game of Thrones and make a really bad comparison, but I'm not going to. It's enjoyable. It's weird. It's Charles Soule at his wackiest. My mileage varies with him quite a bit from book to book. Like some of the Star Wars crap I really kind of hate, but this I really kind of enjoy. So there you go. And speaking of writers whose writing it varies for me. It's more like enjoyment level from book to book. This is my favorite book of the week. Okay, not a great week. I did not get any DC books this week. I'll start reviewing them digitally. I know one of these years. And also, there's nothing this week that grabbed me for that. So, Department of Truth, number 22. This book is finally starting to go somewhere, I think. And it feels like it's going to wrap up soon. I hope. James Tynion, Al Simmons, Mike Simmons, Leroy Simmons. I can't remember it's Al. It's Bill Sienkiewicz light or Bill Sienkiewicz on dirty Bill Sienkiewicz. How about that? Yeah, dirty Sanchez, Bill Sienkiewicz. Don't Google that, kids. Martin Simmons. Jesus Christ, I don't know why I never remember his first name. All right, so it's Shane Tynion the fourth, and like Tynion tends to pace things glacially, and this book tends to be very dialogue heavy. Like several issues have just been 2 people talking. And that's it. This book is not that. This issue is not that. Thankfully, it's finally a bit of action. It's very action heavy for this title, which means it's light on action for almost any other title. But it's progressing the plot forward. And it's taking the protagonist, antagonist, whatever you, anti-hero, the main character, Cole, is at the focal point, I guess, again. And like it's centering around his life in this Department of Truth and versus the Department of Lies, or is the Kingdom of General, like, I don't know, something of lies. Anyways, Department of Truth, like, keeping track of what's real in the world, and, like, the fact that, like, if ideas gain enough power, they can become real is sort of the default. It's sort of like what the premise behind this. If you're not, it's your 22 issues in. If you have not gotten that far, oops, I'm sorry I spoiled it for you, but you've had 2 years to like get caught up on this one. So this is like finally feels like it's racing towards an end game, and by racing I mean turtle races. But I think it's finally getting somewhere. I don't know if it's a finite thing. I hope so. I hope this story wraps up. It's my favorite. I know it sounds like I'm slamming on it. I'm not. It's an interesting idea that Tynan has set up, and this is one of the more interesting issues in this book full of interesting ideas. I still love Martin Simmons' art, even though I can't remember his first name, and I really enjoyed this issue because it's finally the main character stepping up for themselves and doing something, and things have come to a head in his relationship outside of the department and inside of the department, and it feels like this is like a positive step. Maybe not positive as far as like good things are going to happen to the character, but just a storytelling wise, a positive step. So I really have been liking Department of Truth from the get-go. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I know a lot of people have given up on it, but now because it is slow, but it's Tynan. Tynan is slow as shit, and so you're going to get that from him. If you like Tynan stuff, this is, I think, one of his better books. If you don't like Tynan stuff, this one's not going to change your mind on it, and especially if you don't like Martin Simmons' kind of art style, this might not be for you. But my favorite book of the week. So Department of Truth, number 22. There you have it. I'm going to get the hell out of here. Everybody go kill a turkey or murder a Cornish game hen or fight with your relatives that are anti-vaxxers or whatever the hell you're going to do over the holiday weekend. I don't know. I'll see you next week. And I don't know, maybe, you know what? If you're going to be fighting with anti-vaxxers and stuff this weekend, it's okay to be a little bit of a dick. You can be a bit of a dick. You got my permission. Be a Thanksgiving dick. Be thankful for your dickishness. I don't know, whatever. That's... Yeah. I'll see you next week.